Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the mini series Relationship Fears. This episode is about fear of being deficient. Stick around as I talk about reasons why people fear they're not good enough and how to cope with it.
If you found the one, you should never give her up. I think it's the way life.
Hey everyone, Angie here, and welcome back. Before we get started on this episode, Fear of Being Deficient, I want to say something to the people out there that are listening. Um, I want you to understand that you are good enough. You are worth it. Don't have feelings of being deficient in anything. And the reason why I can say this is because I had my own experiences with fear of being deficient. It didn't cause me to not want to enter a relationship, but it happened while I was in a relationship. And before I got married, I was told by somebody very close to me that if I got married at 18, I would never be anything. I would never, all I would be is a baby maker. And this was by somebody that was very close to me. And when we were going through the financial struggle, my husband and I, those feelings carried over with me. And it caused me to fall into a state of depression because I felt like I was deficient financially and that I could never be anything and that I would never amount to anything. And I started believing those thoughts. So what I want you to understand is that a lot of the times, people are not telling you things or talking down on you because it's you. They are talking down on you because it's them, because they feel inadequate, because they feel deficient in an area. And a lot of the times they project their feelings of themselves onto somebody else. And so that's what I wanted to tell you all before we jump into this and get started. Let's jump right into the reasons as to why people feel like they aren't good enough, why they feel like they're deficient in an area. I am a firm believer in you are a product of your environment, and depending on how you were raised and where you were raised, it does affect us in our adulthood. It does affect us in our relationships and how we build relationships, whether personal or in business. I believe that, and I tell people that all the time. So the first thing that I want to talk about is trauma from childhood, things that were said to us. Sometimes we might not have had the best parents in the world, parents that are loving, parents that are encouraging to their kids, parents that give a tender answer, a soft answer, give you a tender hug, make you feel like you are just the best thing ever, and not in a negative way, but in a good way, as to go out and conquer your dreams, go out and do what you are supposed to do. You know, me getting married at 18, I would have loved to hear, I don't agree with this, however, go out and make the best of it. And if I had a child in that situation, I would probably tell my kid that. Would I be happy that she was getting married as a teenager? Probably not. But I would encourage her to go out and make the best of the situation. And when you're dealing with trauma of hurtful words from when you were growing up or being talked down to growing up, that impacts your relationship significantly, because you will, in your relationships, accept hurtful words as words of love. And that's where verbal abuse comes into. Many people don't know that people that are accepting verbal abuse, we may look at that and say, oh girl, no, I would never take that. Or even if it's a man that's taking it, oh, I wouldn't take that, bro. Like, no, you need to leave her, you need to leave him. But they don't realize that they're receiving that because that's probably all they know. That's probably what they grew up on, receiving hateful words as words of love. And that's a huge negative. Another reason why people tend to not feel like they aren't good enough is because they've had a previous failed relationship. Whether, it doesn't matter what caused the failed relationship, it doesn't matter how it happened, when it happened, it tends to carry over into the next relationship. And they say, well, if I failed at this relationship, I'm not going to be good at this relationship, not realizing all relationships are different. They bring something to the table. You learn something different from each relationship. And this impacts our relationship so much because we as people, it's true, tend to bring extra baggage to another station when we can really just condense that. And what I mean by condense is we can learn to accept that past relationship for what it was. Accept it for that lesson we learned, accept it for that blessing it was, and move forward in this new relationship. We can also tend to be very judgmental of ourselves, which will cause us to not feel like we are good enough to enter a new relationship or progress in the relationship that we currently are in. My cousin and I, we just had a discussion maybe about a couple weeks ago about my perfectionism and my desire for perfection. And I don't realize how it hinders me. I'm almost a perfectionist to a fault. It hinders me in certain things. And I realized how it impacted my relationship when we were having that conversation about me as a perfectionist. And I realized then that I expected that from my husband. I was so judgmental of myself, and I became judgmental of him as far as just, you can't make any mistakes. You have to cross all your T's and dot all your I's. Like, you can't make no errors in nothing in life. And I had beat myself up so bad about this bad decision that I made that, she gave me this pep talk of, everything is not going to go how you expect it to go. You're going to make bad decisions in your life. And so that is one thing that we can work on as individuals, not being judgmental of ourselves. So how can we tackle the fear of feeling deficient, the fear of being inadequate, the fear of not being good enough? The first thing we can do is remember that we will not get it right all the time. There is no such thing as perfection. Perfection is only reserved to Christ. The second thing we can do is lift ourselves up. Celebrate those successes. Celebrate accomplishments. Celebrate reaching goals. You don't need somebody to do that for you. You can do that yourself. The third thing we can do, which is it's a mind thing. It's a mind game we're playing. Don't overthink things. When you overthink, it prevents you from moving forward. It prevents you from coming up with solutions to the problems. And last but certainly not least, how can you nurture somebody who is feeling deficient, feeling like they're not good enough? What can you do for them? The first thing is encourage them. Give them a nice word. Give them a word of empowerment, a word of inspiration, letting them know that they are good enough. They are not deficient. They are adequate. They do the best that they can. Let them know that. Give them that comfort and that feeling of being wanted, being desired. The second thing you can do to help this situation is give solutions to problems. There's nothing worse than somebody coming to you with a problem and you just making the situation worse. Always try to come up with a solution. And if you don't have a solution right now, tell them you don't have it right now, but you're working on getting a solution to them. So that's all I have for you today. Stay tuned next week, episode 4, Fear of Receiving Love.
Yeah. The ones we keep close, we should never let go. So